know that we are not always given a choice. Life doesn't always work in our favor, and we have to improvise, sometimes adapt, and overcome periodically against all the odds. If I were given a choice, I'd be wealthy and well known. I would be the philanthropist that I've always wanted to be, but I did not have a say in that. I did not have a choice, and all the burning of the midnight oil for decades made no difference at all. My prayers were never answered by a God, not as near as far as I can tell. However, I did have prayers answered otherwise. I recognize the prayers that have been answered, and I'm grateful for them. I would have had God answer them, however, He seemed to take little interest in my life and what I wanted. Found them answered instead by a goddess whom I poured out my heart to. She did answer my prayers, and she did so without me having to beg, which always seemed to be the case with God, and again to no avail. However, it was before I married my wife 2 years later that I offered up a prayer to the Lady Goddess, even while I was homeless and the woman that I loved was married. I wanted her to be happy, but she wasn't happy, and I knew that she wasn't. So I prayed that she find someone who would make her happy, someone to give her all that she wanted and needed. I had no idea I would be married to her 2 years later, and had somebody told me, I would not have believed them, because I knew that she was the kind of woman that I valued the most, the salt of the earth in my book. In my eyes she hung the moon and set the stars, and dreams like that just don't come true for yours truly. And besides, I wasn't praying for me to be happy, I was praying for Leah to be happy. Leah, who would later be my wife. She would be the one I would spend my life with. She was the one that gave me all that I ever wanted and more. She was the woman who brought out the best in me, even as her own heart reflected that of my Lady Goddess. It would turn out that the Lady Goddess would answer my prayers that could be answered. She delivered me from Hep C, which I contracted when I was putting needles in my arm while living on the streets in Seattle. I cut that shit out years before I met Leah, and I'm not proud that I ever did that shit. However, there came a time in my life where I really no longer cared if I lived or died. The small, still voice in my heart told me that I wouldn't die in Seattle if I stopped what I was doing. This voice told me that I would marry the woman of my dreams if I stopped doing the shit I was doing. I didn't necessarily believe this small, still voice. On the other hand, I didn't disbelieve it either, so I quit. It wasn't easy, and I wouldn't suggest people to try and quit on their own, but I had to. It was either that or be institutionalized, and if I'd done that, my life would have been put more on hold than it already was. Still, I wouldn't suggest to people that have a drug problem to try quitting on their own. I was alone. I had no one. And where was God all that time? Well, I honestly don't know. But there was a Lady Goddess who showed me mercy and granted me my heart's desire. And 2 years later, Leah became my wife. She became the perfect wife, one that made me want to be a better man. And soon, after we were married, I learned that I was bipolar, with schizoaffective tendencies. Oh my, the irony.